What is good? What is up? It's Jordan or Texans Thoughts, and we're back with another live stream. Today, I've got a very exciting episode for you guys. First, before we get into our special guest, I want to do a quick little housekeeping because I got a big announcement. I am officially the new host of the Believe in Texans podcast. Very excited about this new opportunity. I think this network has really a great upward trajectory, and I'm really excited to join the team. We are planning on trying to get a former Texans player as my co-host, so be on the lookout for that. In terms of my content, nothing really changes. Still going to be doing these streams, but you will be able to get the audio version of the streams on all of your favorite podcast services, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all that good stuff. Links are in the description for that. So now that we're done with the housekeeping, I want to introduce the special guest of this episode. Thank you, Derrik Klassen, for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm not doing too bad, man. I mean, first of all, congratulations to you making a new move. I mean, that's exciting, and I'm glad I get to kind of be here for the announcement. That's cool.
Absolutely. I appreciate you taking the time and joining us, and thank you. Yes, I'm glad that you are my first kind of guest for starting off this show, because I feel like we need to have an NFL draft expert to kick us off. We are so close to the NFL draft, 2 weeks away, guys. Oh my goodness. And so Derrik Klassen, he is an established and accomplished writer for Football Outsiders, specializing in film rooms. So he's a film guy just like me. That's why I really needed to bring him in here. He's also part of the NFL draft scouting team over at Bleacher Report, specializing in linebackers and defensive line. So we've got a big-time expert here. You guys can follow him on Twitter at QBClass. Links in the description for that. But yeah, today we're going to be, thank you so much for the donations. We got my boy Patty Storm in here, $2. I appreciate it. Shout out to everyone in the chat. We got the moderate Texan, my boy Jay, $40. Let's go. He ain't even ready. Let's go. The beard. Neither of us have beards, man.
No.
I don't think I could ever pull off a beard. I am Asian. We do not grow hair like that. I don't know about you, Derrik, but
I'm 24 years old. I think I would have figured it out by now, and it's not happening. So
it's okay. We're pulling off the baby face. It's all good. Yeah. But okay, in terms of agenda today, we're gonna go through kind of Texans draft strategy in the first round. That's what we're gonna make the focus on for today. We got the 2 picks, 3 and 13. Hallelujah. We've been through a drought where the Texans have really been in a poor spot, but now we have the capital to really rebuild. So we'll go through that. We will answer some questions from you guys on Twitter, and then we'll do some rapid fire questions asking Derrik and picking his brain a little bit. Alrighty, let's get into it, y'all. So starting off, Texans are very lucky to have the 3rd overall pick in this class. And I think they're in a very advantageous scenario. I feel like they could go in numerous routes here, and it's kind of hard to complain with what they would end up doing. But I want to talk to you, Derrik. What is your strategy for the Texans? If you are the GM of the Texans, where are you kind of going with this pick?
I mean, personally, I think it has to be so. No matter how the board shakes out, one of Thibodeaux or Evan Neal are going to be there, right? And to me, you just take whichever one of them are there. If they're both there, feels a little bit more to me like I would lean Thibodeaux, just because I think he's the best player in the class. I think he's been the best player in the class the entire time. So personally, if he's there, that's what I would do. If neither of those two there, I would definitely try to do what I can to entertain a trade down. But if they end up with some other guy, maybe it's another tackle like a Quanu or something, I think any of those are perfectly fine. But yeah, to me, it would be like Thibodeaux, Neal, trade back.
Okay. You're speaking my language. You're Team Thibodeaux. I like it. I know he is one of the most kind of polarizing players in this class. He's been taking a lot of heat late in the draft process, which is kind of wild to me because he's been touted as the number 1 guy, the crown jewel of this class for so long. And I know Texans fans particularly are a bit more worrisome than other fan bases because of our kind of history taking a defensive end at number 1. Mario Williams and Jadeveon Clowney come to mind, so are high up in the first round like that. And so what do you kind of make of the work ethic concerns with Thibodeaux? Do you see the Clowney comparison off the field and on the field? Because I think there's credence to it somewhat on the field in terms of his play style and whatnot, but what do you kind of see in terms of that take?
All the stuff with his off-field problems, whatever they are, it really more just none of it has been substantiated, right? Like he hasn't done anything illegal. There's no like very clear story of he did this, and this. It's like to me, because none of it is substantiated, it's really hard for me to actually like put any faith into it. And Justice Mosqueda and Charles McDonald were actually talking on Charles's podcast the other day about how why are we allowing like the NFL, who just traded a bunch of picks and money for Deshaun Watson, to be the arbiter of like morality in the NFL? I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense. So until it becomes very clear that Thibodeaux has done something wrong, I don't see why we should put any stock into it. And as far as on the field, I think Thibodeaux probably has a little bit more bend than Clowney did coming out. Clowney was just like the first step from the heavens. Like that dude was the most explosive player I think I've ever seen. So I think they're a little different, but definitely both a little bit more guys who are like speed guys, or like come off the ball and have a ton of power. So I can kind of see that.
Yeah, I said before that Kayvon Thibodeaux is the best player in this class in terms of he's the best player in the first second after the snap in this class. Like his get off is absolutely insane. It's Clowney-like, it's explosive. His lower half is just really, really fun to watch. And he can just beat guys purely with that get off. And so that's kind of maybe why he might be a little bit more underdeveloped in terms of developing a pass rush plan and counters and all that good stuff. But that comes with time. Like it's not like the college version of Kayvon is who he's going to be his entire life. I don't buy that whatsoever. I think looking at how passionate he is in terms of his career, his business, and just trying to do better things that are even past football. Like I think this is a very driven individual, and I'm with you. Like I don't think any of these claims are substantiated whatsoever. It's probably stemming from teams trying to get him to fall later into the top 10 so that they get a chance to take him. But I agree with you. I think if he's there on the board at 3, it would be a no-brainer decision for the Texans. I think even talking kind of roster-wise and scheme-wise, like he fits perfectly for what we need. We need that alpha pass rusher, that blue chip defender to build your defense around. And Lovie Smith, like his defenses always work through the trenches. It's always about the defensive line. He needs that front 4 to get the pass rush because he's not going to blitz. And he needs that guy. So he needs that Thibodeaux. And I think that'd be perfect. But thank you, Willie Boy P, for the $20. I appreciate you. Appreciate everyone for the donations. Let me go through the chat real quick. Yeah, so if you guys didn't catch it earlier, I'm the new host for the Believe in Texans podcast. So if you weren't able to catch the live stream, if you don't like looking at my face, I don't blame you. If you want to just listen to me, you want to catch the audio later, it'll be on all that good stuff, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. But yeah. Okay, so at 3, you're going Thibs, and then you're going Neal. The Neal discussion's interesting to me because let me ask you this question first. I do have him very highly rated. He's my 3rd overall player on my board. I love him. I think he can be an absolutely elite tackle. My question is to you, do you think he can actually play guard? I know he did it in college, but 6'7" guard, it's difficult. Do you think he can do that?
I think it would be fine. And that's actually why I like Neal for them specifically at this spot. Because like truthfully, if I'm just trying to lock in franchise left tackle, I might like Charles Cross slightly more, especially as a pass protector. But I think the flexibility that Evan Neal can give you, especially for the way that this Houston line is structured, they kind of have left tackle figured out. But I think Neal could play basically everything else, especially right tackle right out of the gate. I mean, if you put those two dudes at bookend, I mean. That's about as good as it's going to get in the NFL, assuming Neal is who we think he is as a rookie. So I think just the flexibility that he would give them would be awesome. And I think he could definitely play guard. I think, you probably wouldn't want to take that at 3 and like keep him at guard forever. Yeah. But if you're doing that while like trying to segue into a different version of the offensive line, I think it would be totally fine.
Yeah, and that's why at the end of the day, I keep saying, like, no matter kind of which direction the Texans go from here, like, I'm not really going to be too upset because it really comes down to the flexibility, like you said. Like, if you draft Neal, put him at left guard, right guard, or whatever as a rookie, you keep Titus and Tunsil as your tackles, then Neal having that flexibility, it really helps because we don't know what Tunsil is going to do when his contract is up. And by that time, he will kind of be on a bit of a different timeline than our rebuilding timeline. So maybe we end up trading Tunsil. Maybe we end up losing him. He goes somewhere else. Boom. Evan Neal is, like Derrik said, as good of a tackle as you can get. So I'd be happy with that in Titus as well. So yeah, any of those options at 3 would be really, really great for me. Trading down, maybe a team will come up. I think it's more likely, honestly, that a team trades up to the 13 pick than they do to 3. Because just looking at 3, like, who are you really getting ahead of? Like, maybe you're getting ahead of the Panthers, but like you probably just trade up to 4 or 5, like, and then Malik Willis might go at 2. Like that's a potential landing spot. So it's just a weird kind of in between spot. The Texans are there. So I think they just go BPA at 3. I'm with you on that. Now as for 13, they're in a bit of a different spot there. They get that pick from the Browns via the Deshaun Watson trade. What's your general kind of strategy for that pick there?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, it kind of fringes on if they end up with Thibodeaux at 3. If they take
That's fair.
Thibodeaux at 3, obviously you wouldn't have to take an edge. But if they still end up needing an edge at 3 or at 13, I actually still really, really like George Karlaftis. I think he's a top 10 player in the class. So if they wanted to take a guy like that at that spot, I think that would be totally fine. Other than that, maybe taking the best defensive back left on the board. You pray to God that maybe Derek Stingley falls to you. I don't know that is going to happen, but if it does, I think it would be really hard to pass that up. And then other than that, probably again is moving into like trade down scenario for me, assuming you didn't already do that at 3.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got it on lock, I think. I like that strategy a lot. Let's go with the Thibodeaux situation. If he is the pick at 3, then yeah, I'm with you. I mean, fingers crossed it's Stingley, fingers crossed it's Hamilton. Like, what do you make of Hamilton's slide? Safety out of Notre Dame. Do you buy that a little bit more than the Thibodeaux slide?
The Hamilton one is weird because, like, I don't know. If you watch his 40, it seems very clear that he just like wasn't comfortable running it. He just came out of like the first 20 yards, super, super awkward. Like literally not running in a straight line. So I think that's going to be one of those weird cases. And it's always like, stupid to say, he plays faster than he ran, but like you watch Kyle Hamilton play and it's very, very obvious that he plays a lot faster than he ran. So I don't think that's going to be an issue for him. And I think he does so much of everything that he could fit into any defense. So if he falls to 13, I don't think that should happen. But if he does, I think it would be really, really hard to pass on a player like that. Especially because like at a certain point, people were considering that Houston should take him at 3. So now if he falls to 13, like that's pretty good to me.
He's been my guy at 3 for most of this year. And then now it's kind of gotten to the point where I just keep having to defend myself that I'm fully on the Kyle Hamilton train. But I'm with you. I'm glad someone smarter than me is saying it too. He plays faster than he tests. The clip went out there on Twitter of him, of like kind of the different camera angle of his 40, where it's kind of a straight ahead view rather than the, I guess, horizontal view. And you can see, like Derrik said, like this man's running zigzags. Like
he's almost like running out of the lines.
Yeah, he's trying to run to the sideline. Like I don't know who coached him. Someone's got to get fired. But man, I'm kind of in the conspiracy theory. If you want to put your tinfoil hat on, I'm in the crowd that he's trying to tank his stock to go to a better team, because there is just no way that he is running that bad. And he reportedly ran worse at his pro day. It makes no sense to me. I'm still fully on board Kyle Hamilton. I would even still think of him at 3. I know that's wild, but I'm not high on him because, like Derrik said, I think he can do so much for you. And I think he and Thibodeaux really have the highest ceilings out of anyone in this class. I'm really, really believing in that. And so, I mean, if he potentially is there at 13, dude, oh my gosh, that's a dream haul for the Texans. I know a lot of Texans fans also want us to go cornerback early. And Lovie Smith has preached about how he wasn't happy with the results at cornerback last year. They want to invest in that. And Nick Caserio has always been, with that Patriots model of building back to front. Get him his next J.C. Jackson. Get him his next Stephon Gilmore. At 13, Derrik, is there anyone else other than Derek Stingley that we should really be looking for? Like Ahmad Gardner probably won't be there. Are you in the Andrew Booth camp? Maybe Kyer Elam? Is that too early for him? What are your thoughts on a cornerback at 13?
Truthfully, just because of all the other stuff I've done, I haven't watched that many of the other corners past the top 2. But what I would say was I think for this system, they really, really need somebody who's willing to play physical and willing to tackle. So whoever is the best in that mold left at that spot, I think is probably should be the pick.
Fair. And that's why I kind of am a bit more wary of Derek Stingley, because tackling is not that's his biggest weakness on tape in terms of actually
sounds like an LSU corner.
Yeah, exactly. What are they coaching them there? But yeah, for me, the cornerback who fits that bill perfectly is Andrew Booth. I'm really high on him. He ended up having tied for the same like film grade for me as Sauce Gardner did. And I think he's worthy of like a top 15 pick for sure. He's the best tackling cornerback in my opinion. Really, really good at reading and reacting, clicking and closing from an off position, flying downhill. And I mean, if you watch the Georgia game, people have always posted that same clip of him coming downhill and blowing up James Cook in the flat. He'll do that all day in the NFL. So I think I'm personally in the camp of Booth at 13. I think that'd be a great pick if we end up going edge at 3. But okay, so that's kind of our thoughts at 13. I guess general thoughts in terms of a trade down. What do you think, Derek, is kind of like a realistic haul for the Texans to get in this trade down? Like, let's say they're gonna go trade down with, maybe it's another team that has 2 seconds in the first round. So, or sorry, 2 firsts in the first round, like Green Bay, like Kansas City. So you're getting to that end of the first round from, say, 13. Do you think they can get another future first round pick, or do you think it'd more look like second rounder, third rounder?
I would have to assume it's more day 2 picks, just because I think because the way that this draft is constructed in a way is like the best picks are kind of between that 8 to 25. So it feels like moving within that range isn't quite as valuable because you're going to get a really good player no matter what in that range.
Yeah.
So it feels more like to me if they were trading, from 13 back to I don't know, wherever the Saints are at like 16, it would probably only be, some extra day 2 stuff. If they were moving back with maybe with the Chiefs or Packers, I would have a hard time believing there's another first round pick in there. But you never know. I mean, somebody could get really desperate, especially if whoever they're going up for is Charles Cross. I think if Charles Cross is left at 13 and somebody really, really wants to go up and get who is clearly, to me, there's a tier of 3 tackles, and if he would be the last one in this scenario, that would be the one scenario where someone could go a little crazy with whatever they're willing to spend.
Wow, you were very high on Cross. I
like him a lot. I think he's just the best pass protector in this class, and I think he is a little bit meaner and tougher of a run defender than he gets credit for, just because you see Mike Leach running the offense, you're like, it's air and stuff, but I think he gets after it.
I'm 100% with you. I love his pass protection, his technique, his ability to kind of game plan and switch up for depending on the type of rusher he was going after. I was really impressed by his game versus Alabama when he was going up against different like outside linebacker, then a 3-4 defensive end. And depending on who he was facing, like he knew how to kind of vary his punch timing and whatnot to stall the rusher depending on what their strengths were. So I was very impressed by that. And then I'm with you too. Like I heard before I had watched him, I heard that, he's a bad run blocker. He doesn't get any push, but like that dude, he pushes people around the field, man.
Yeah, I think what's happening is just, if you had just come off of watching, Evan Neal and Ike Ekwonu, who are just bulldozing people.
Yeah.
And then you watch, Cross, who is like above average, but not really crushing people. You probably feel pretty underwhelmed. But like, truthfully, if you just watch Cross in like isolation, if you can do that,
yeah,
he's doing more than enough as a run defender. And I think as a run blocker, and when you pair that with being the smoothest pass protector in the class, it's just a hard profile for me to not get excited about.
Absolutely. He is, what is he, 11th on my board? I think, he's a borderline top 10 talent in this class. I really like the run blocking. Like you said, like he's a positive as a run blocker. He gets the job done. I think it's definitely more of like a zone scheme guy than a gap power. But he's long. He's athletic. He can get out in space. He drives his legs decently to create push. Like there's enough technique and enough athleticism and physicality there where I can buy into it for sure. But yeah, love Charles Cross. Actually, I want to go back before we get into this next segment. Because you mentioned you love George Karlaftis.
Yeah.
And I know you're a D-line guy. So I want to get your edge rankings. Actually, I should have asked you for this before, but I want to get your edge rankings. Give me your top 5. What does that look like?
I'm trying to remember my Bleacher Report specifically. I think I have Thibodeaux, and then I actually have Karlaftis. I literally like him that much that he's, I think, a little bit better than Hutchinson to me.
Wow.
Okay. Hutchinson would be 3rd. I want to say 4th. I guess it depends on, if you're counting Trayvon Walker. For the sake of this argument, I will not. Then to me, I think it's Arnold Ebiketie from Penn State. I just think he's one of the more advanced rushers in the class. His hand usage is pretty ridiculous, and he has really good get off and bend. So if he can add any amount of weight and power, he'll be a really good NFL rusher. And then after that is where I have Jermaine Johnson, who the hype to me is a little bit. I think the top 10 stuff is a little much, but I think he's a good player. I think he can be a really good number 2 in the NFL. And he's going to be one of the better run defenders out of the gate, actually. I think day one, he'll probably be the best. Like him and Hutchinson are probably going to be the best run defenders out of the gate.
Okay. I want to break this down more because I'm loving this. In terms of, let's talk about Karlaftis versus Hutchinson, because I feel like that is a not a consensus pick. Like most people will have Hutch, even one, and then Thibs, one of those two as one or two, but Karlaftis at two. Sell me on that, because I feel like when I see him, he's not the biggest guy, doesn't have the longest arms, he's explosive, but I don't think he's like super bendy, not like Thibs. Probably on the same level as Hutchinson in my opinion. But do you think? And then like the production's not really like, it doesn't really jump out at you. But sell me on him. I want to be sold on him.
Yeah, I mean, so he was probably playing at like 265, 270, and the way he comes off the ball for that size is really, really ridiculous to me. And then I think even though he has shorter arms, you can see it. He runs into some trouble because I don't think he has like a good long arm move that he can just, bend all the way around the edge from like a wide nine or whatever. That's not really who he is. But I think when he gets a clean strike, he has some of the most powerful hands in the class. So I just think he's a very strong, explosive rusher with, like you mentioned, not the best bend, but I think he does enough given the rest of his tools. To me, he reminds me a lot of Ryan Kerrigan, who was like a very crafty, very powerful, very explosive rusher who had enough bend to, kind of accommodate the rest of his skill set. And that's kind of what I see in Karlaftis. And then what also sold me on Karlaftis personally is if you go back and watch him playing as a freshman, which one, I think is pretty impressive. He was starting in the Big Ten as a freshman to begin with, but he was not a good run defender as a freshman. Like he just never saw blocks incorrectly, didn't know what to do with his hands. His base would get all wide, just not great. You watch him now, and I think he's a lot better with how he understands how to keep his base under him. I think he does better seeing what kinds of concepts he's getting. And I think he does a lot better using his hands and making sure he's getting the initial punch on guys and keeping himself clean. So I think just seeing that progression suggests to me that there's some more development that he could be doing, just because he's already proven to me that he can get better and he can work at that stuff. So I just think with the explosive potential, a guy of his weight being that explosive, and then just the development he's shown, I think there's a lot left there for him to go in a good way. I already think he's good, and I think there's a lot more, is what I'm saying.
Interesting. Okay, two things. First thing, that's very interesting to note the improvement you've seen, because for me, that was kind of one of my biggest issues, is his hand usage was so inconsistent. Like I felt that no matter what game you watched, like if you watched game A, you would have maybe thought he was going to be a Hall of Famer. You watch game B, he's like, okay, I don't know what's going on here. I just don't see it, because his moves, like when they land, it's beautiful, man. It's beautiful. It's picturesque. But when they don't, then he's kind of struggling, and it just comes down to his motor, which is great. And he has those effort pressures. But I'm a big believer that you can't purely just win off of motor, off of stunts and all that good stuff. So that was good to note from you. Secondly, where do you see his best kind of like scheme fit in terms of 4-3, 3-4, hand in the dirt, strong side, weak side? What do you think there?
I almost would kind of like him standing up, even though he's a heavier guy. But I mean, you look at guys like, I mean, the Packers in particular, the Packers and the Ravens actually really like heavier stand-up backers. And I think that type of scheme would actually be really good for him, because you can twist him inside a lot, and you can get him hitting guards and stuff like that. I think he's plenty powerful enough to do it. But those schemes tend to like those bigger stand-up outside rushers. And truthfully, for whatever reason, I think this is just like a comfort thing some guys have. To me, it feels like he coils and comes off the ball better when he's standing up. I don't know what that is exactly. I don't know if you can coach it to be better when his hand's in the dirt. Who knows? But some guys are just more comfortable certain ways, and it seems like that's what it is for him. So that's probably what I would want to do with him in the NFL.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you on that point. I noticed like he has this kind of weird 2-point stance where he's like a bit angled to the ball, where he's kind of like almost like at a 45-degree angle. It's not that drastic, but and he kind of runs like in a diagonal way. It's really weird and unique, but that's definitely when he's at his best. So yeah, I'm with you on that too. I think stand-up guy. So maybe not the best fit for the Texans as we are running a 4-3, but very talented player. I wouldn't be mad at us for taking him at 13, because I think that's good value there. But yeah, for me, my edge rankings, how does it go? It goes, I got Hutchinson first. I just think he's the most polished. Thibodeaux second, and they're basically like 1A, 1B. Like there's very little separation there. I'm a big Jermaine Johnson guy. I really like him. I think the more I watched of him, the more I appreciated him and the little things that he actually does. Then I got Karlaftis. Then I got Walker. For saying Walker's an interior guy, which I think he honestly probably should be, then I would go Ebekete as well. I love Ebekete. I think he's a first round talent who's probably going to be there at the second, and every team is going to want to be trading up for him because, man, he, like you said, like he is so detailed in his pass rush plan and counters. He can win on all three tracks. Like he's a really fun guy to watch. So he's one of my favorite guys. I know we're only talking about the first round for the Texans, but he's one of my favorite second round targets at 37, top of the second round there. If you don't go edge in the first round, man, look out for Ebekete. He's a special talent for sure. That Penn State defense was fun to watch, actually.
They had some dudes.
Yeah. Would you, okay, since I got you, what do you think about Jesse Luketa? Because he's one of my guys this year.
He's like, so he actually really reminds me of a guy who plays for the Chiefs. His name is Mike Dana. He's mostly just a run defender, but he has this like kind of boxy bulldog looking build the way that Luketa does. Very top heavy. Almost looks like a Lego character or something, just the way that he's built. But just a dude who really gets after it. He's like a high motor, high energy, like high physicality type of guy. And I think that's really important when you're considering these like mid-round guys who are supposed to be high floor. I think when you get a guy like Luketa who's as physical as he is, I think it's really important. I have some issues with how he actually keeps his feet under him when he's, trying to anchor against people. And I don't really love what he is as a pass rusher, but by the fourth round or something, when you are just looking for these guys who can be a role player, I think he could be like a first and second down stud, honestly. Like he's really clean run defender. So I do like him. Just I worry about what his ceiling is, I guess would be the way I would put it.
Yeah, no, those are all fair takes to say for sure. I like him as a run defender, as like I think he can play strong and weak side as a 4-3 D end. I kind
of got some good chase to him. He does.
Yeah, the pursuit on him, like he is a dog, like you said, like his physicality is 100% his best traits. And I even like him. I know he played linebacker a little bit. He switched up linebacker and edge in college. I like him as a Sam too. Like I think if you just put him at that strong side, ask him to go attack tight ends and set the edge and help set the edge in that aspect. I like that a lot. Do you think he's going to be a versatile guy, or do you think he's going to be kind of stick him at one spot and let him work? What would you do actually?
I would probably lean towards just leaving him at one spot, just because I have a hard time, even though he could just like mash tight ends as a Sam. I worry about what his play in space would look like, as if you move them off the ball or put him in a little bit more space. So I think I would really just want him on the ball and really just kind of getting after people as quickly as he can.
Yeah, that's fair. That's what they did at the Senior Bowl. So you're probably right in terms of what the NFL wants to do there. Okay, yeah, love him. Let's get into the Q&A section from Twitter. You guys can follow me at Texans_thoughts. Hit up Derrik Klassen at QB Class. All right, first one from my boy Ryan. Let me share my screen. That's not the right thing to share. There we go. All right. At Fanatic GM, shout out to Ryan. He says, should a quarterback be considered at 3 or 13, given the ability to heavily invest around a quarterback in the next 3 drafts? Yeah, okay, you go.
I was just about to say, I have a hard time with that one. I just don't like any of these quarterbacks at 3.
Yeah.
And the only one I would even think about at 13 is Ritter. And even then, I just think their timeline is such that like, there's no incentive to be good right now. I think it would just make a lot more sense to hold as much capital as they can and just, they're probably going to get a top 5 pick next year, like their own top 5 pick, let alone what other capital they have. So I think they'll be able to get up and move and get a guy in what is supposed to be a much better class. So I just have a hard time with taking any of these guys in that range, I think.
Yeah, I think this class it's just too risky. And it would be an unnecessary risk for us to take right now. Especially talking about how like essentially the best asset that you can have, best financial asset you can have is a rookie quarterback on the rookie deal, right? And so you kind of don't want to potentially waste one of those years as you're going through this rebuilding process. Like Derrik said, like the timeline and in terms of us not really needing to be good right now, like that's completely fair. Just stockpile your picks as premium picks. Go get a Bryce Young, go get a CJ Stroud next year. I like the potential of Malik Willis, of Matt Corral, of Desmond Ritter. That's kind of those are enticing guys for sure. But not for us. I don't think we're in a position to really help them succeed.
That's a nice way to put it. Not for us.
Not for us. Someone else can take that risk. You got Desmond Ridder, quarterback one, huh?
Yeah, I like him a lot. He's just I'm tend to be the kind of guy that like I want to see higher level processing, and I tend to prefer guys who are going to be a little bit more ready out of the gate. And to me, I think Ridder is clearly the guy for that in this class. There might be some other guys who have a little bit higher ceilings. I mean, Willis for sure. You could argue like Corral, even pick it to a degree, but I just think in terms of out of the gate, he's going to be the best, I think. And then I do think his ceiling is kind of being undersold. Like he's clearly a really good athlete, and I think his arm is a little better than he gets credit for. It's obviously not great. It's not what Willis's is, that's for sure. But I think he's going to be able to make every throw, and I think really a lot of his issues with some of the underthrown deep balls are just like mechanics. I don't think it's an arm strength issue at all.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Okay, so then in terms of his kind of improvement areas, like accuracy is the biggest thing, right? And it's kind of all over the place, short, intermediate, and deep. You said it's mainly in terms of the mechanics, right? In terms of the deep ball. Do you think that's something that's going to be very fixable? Do you think like it should have been ironed out already in college, and that kind of gives you pause, like why hasn't it been ironed out already? Or do you think you're not really too worried about that?
It's tough because I think to a degree he did get better at it. I think he was a lot worse at it earlier in his career, and then he did iron it out a little bit in his senior year. Obviously,
Okay.
it's still not quite where you want it to be, but I think he did a lot better job. So that suggests to me that there's something more untapped there. I also do think it's something that can be fixed. I think, the biggest example to me that I can remember of this issue getting fixed is Ryan Tannehill. If you watch Ryan Tannehill early in his Miami days, just did not do a good job transferring all his weight to get into a lot of those deep throws. And that was why, despite some of the deep weapons that they had, just never really worked out in Miami. Towards the end of his arc there, he kind of started to figure it out. And then obviously in Tennessee, he's figured it out. It's kind of what he does best really at this point, is throw down the field. And so I do think it's definitely fixable. And I think if he can get even, 5-10% better in that area, that helps unlock everything else in his game, I think.
For sure, for sure. No, I'm a believer in that too. I think, especially when you're looking at quarterbacks, you really want to look at which traits are improvable / fixable and which ones aren't. Like, you're never going to be able to get a stronger arm, really, for the most part. I mean, there's some things you can do with your mechanics, but for the most part, you're stuck with the arm, you're stuck with the legs that you are given, right? So I'm with you on that, and it's great you mentioned Ryan Tannehill, because I think that's a very, very common comp for him. Is that your comp? Do you have a different one, or?
To me, he plays a lot like Dak, actually. I don't think he's going to be quite that good, because Dak is just an absolute machine to me. And Dak is like, to me, I'm pretty high on Dak, but to me, he's like a top 5 quarterback. And so I don't think Ridder's going to be that good, but I think they have a lot of similarities just in terms of the ways they like to process. They both try to hold the ball. They want to hunt for bigger plays in structure, not necessarily out of the pocket. Sometimes you want to yell at both of them to just go make a play because they can. It's just they don't do it as much as they could. And then truthfully, I think part of why I like the Dak comp is Ridder does have these like 2-3 throws a game where you're just like, dude, how did you miss that? And honestly, Dak has a lot of those. Dak will have like 2-3 throws a game where you're just like, man, there's no way you should have missed that. And he does. So I don't know. I just think there's pretty good amount of similarities in their game.
I like that one. I like that one a lot. So then do you think you said he probably won't have top 5 ceiling. Is it top 10, top 15? Is that kind of more the range you're looking at?
Yeah, I think he can. I think like if he is like the average version of what I think he can be, he would be like a top 20-ish quarterback. And I think if he gets into the upper echelon of what I think he could be, he would be in that like fringe top 10 range, like in the Derrik Carr range. I think is probably about what I would say, where he's not truly elite, but he's well over the bar of whatever you should be considering at quarterback.
Fair. No, I agree with that. Eric's got a good question here. Where was Davis Mills on your board last year? Because for me, I was not too high on him. I'll admit, I'll take the L, but he shocked us all. He improved a lot over the second half of the season, and we're excited about his future. But where was he on your board? Did you do quarterbacks? You charted all the quarterbacks, so yeah.
Yeah, he also was not very high for me, because part of it I didn't enjoy his tape a lot, because to me it was like he did a really, really good job processing quick game and throwing quick game. That 1 to 10 yard area, he was actually like lights out. It's just that I had a lot of issues with a lot of his other game. I think, making plays outside the pocket was not very good. His deep ball was really bad. I think sometimes he was a little late to trigger on, more of these intermediate concepts. And I thought his arm was fine, but not something you would really get excited about. So I just thought he was kind of like a medium floor, low ceiling type of guy. So he didn't really do a whole lot for me. But I think you're right. As a rookie, I think part of why he actually had a lot of the success that he did is, one, he was as good in the quick game as we thought he was, which helps.
Yeah.
And then I think he was a lot better outside the pocket than he ever looked in college, which good for him. If he can actually keep that up, he's going to be a top 32-ish quarterback for a long time, which that doesn't say a lot, but those guys are going to get paid and continue to get random starting jobs here and there. So.
Yeah, that's at the end of the day kind of how I see him as well. I think he's gonna be. You know what? I'm gonna get in trouble if I start talking shit about him. So you know what? I won't go there. But yeah, no, I'm with you on the fact on the out of the pocket stuff, because he looked a bit, I don't want to say statue-ish, but like he was a bit of a statue in college. And I think one thing that I needed to kind of factor in was that he had a major knee injury.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure he wore a brace. So he might have still been recovering from that. And maybe that's why he looked a little bit less mobile, and being able to throw on the run and all that stuff that excites everyone. But yeah, he was able to make the first guy miss this year. That was the main thing for me is can you at least make that first guy miss? Because like when you're kind of trying to quantify like this off-script playmaking ability from these quarterbacks, like it's all on a spectrum, right? And like we're not going to expect him to be Deshaun Watson. Like we kind of got spoiled from Deshaun Watson juking out 4 or 5 players, just breaking tackles like it's nothing. Like that's not normal. But if you can at least make the first defender miss, step up in the pocket, extend the play, then that's huge. And I think Mills absolutely showed that, and better than I was expecting for someone who's so inexperienced in college. So there were some good signs for Mills. Absolutely. We're going to get to our next question here, which is a fun little scenario from Daniel D. Harmon 91 on Twitter. He asks, would you rather have a combination of Sauce and Jermaine Johnson or Thibodeaux and Stingley with the 3rd and 13th pick? Derek, what are your thoughts? And then I'll provide mine.
I guess it would, specifically for the Texans, I think you could maybe make the argument for Sauce and Johnson, but I think the raw talent level, at least in my opinion, of Thibodeaux and Stingley is just significantly higher. Like I said, I think to me, Thibodeaux is the best player in the class. And then I like Johnson, but not quite in the top 10 range. And then to me, I think Stingley is just a little bit better than Sauce. I think just to do what he did as a freshman, even though the past 2 years have been kind of rocky, with injury stuff and all that, I think what he did as a freshman, for me, when he went toe-to-toe with Kyle Pitts, I was like, okay, this guy's a little different. This guy's a little different. So I still believe that player is there. So to me, it would be Thibodeaux and Stingley.
Yeah, I've heard some great stories about Stingley and kind of who he is as a person and the kind of competitor that he is and how he sharpened his iron versus Jamar Chase on that LSU team. And so to be able to go up against that guy every day in practice, like you're going to get good. You're going to have to bring it. And so, and he's a freak athlete. Like the potential is still all there. I'm a bit lower on him than others. He's still like a first round cornerback for me. I think still first, like definitely like top 12, 15 pick. I don't think he should fall past that whatsoever. I am worried about the injuries. I am worried about the decline in play, the tackling and all that stuff. I just think that for me, he's my cornerback 3. Yes, 3 behind Gardner and Booth. And I just think there's more risk involved there with Stingley than a guy like Sauce. And so that's at the end of the day, my kind of thought process with this scenario. I'm a risk averse person. And I think that's what this scenario comes down to. Are you risk averse or are you just trying to swing for the fences, man, and go for the potential play? Because like you said, Thibs and Stingley, like absolutely the ceiling on them, crazy. Like that's 2 potential all pros right there. Are Sauce and Jermaine 2 potential all pros? Maybe, but I don't see it as much as I would with the other 2. But I think you're getting 2 high-level starters. I think Sauce can absolutely be a cornerback 1, Pro Bowler, perennial Pro Bowler. Jermaine, very pro-ready run defender. Will he ever get perennial double-digit sacks? I think it'll depend kind of on the system and the talent around him. Like I think if he's got a really good number 2 beside him, or if he is the number 2, then yes, he can get to that, but he needs to refine his hands a lot. to get there. So for me, I'm a risk-averse person. I would go Sauce and Jermaine, but this is a win-win scenario, man. Daniel, you gave us a tough one for sure. Okay, let's do the next one. Actually, let me see chat real quick. Chat's still here with the fire used to be. Y'all know. Okay, last one. Boom. Okay. Found of Houston Sports on Twitter says, okay, you got 3 questions for us. We're going to take one. Sharing is caring, my guy. Which prospects in the draft community, which prospects is the draft community picking on a little too much for your liking? We've talked about this a bit in the beginning of the podcast stream. I don't know what to call this now. Doing both. Who, if you had to pick one, who do you think is being criticized unfairly the most, Derrik?
I mean, I voiced how excited I am about Karlaftis, and I think that would probably be my pick because, earlier on in the process, he was like pretty consensus top 10 pick for everybody. And I think just the longer the process went on, the more, at least to me, it seemed like people just got bored with him because I think he still did a lot of the things over the process that he was supposed to do. He didn't test like completely out of this world, but he tested exactly what his tape looked like, which is like perfectly fine with me. And so, basically just to loop back to everything else I've said about Karlaftis, just to be as explosive as he is at that size is just insane to me. So it's been a little bit baffling to me that he's fallen a little bit more into the 25-ish range. I've even heard some people are saying that he might fall to the second, which again would be completely insane to me. I just think that there's no way that should happen. So my answer for this is probably Karlaftis.
Karlaftis. Okay, I think that's fair. I think I guess one of the other reasons why he may be falling is that it's such a great edge class. And the Travon Walker hype has been absolutely insane. I think on the opposite end of the spectrum, he might be the player who is gaining too much hype for my liking. But that's not, Walker.
I agree.
You agree, right? Okay, thank you. I'm not crazy. That's not the question. The question is which prospect is getting picked on a little bit too much for me. It's definitely Kyle Hamilton. I'm a big team Kyle Hamilton guy. I just think he's so much more athletic than he tested, and he's one of those guys where you just have to trust the film. The film does not lie. I say it all the time. And he has made some of the most insane plays out of a college safety that I have ever seen. I mean, his range, his instincts. Like, I was talking to someone on Twitter the other day when they were trying to discount that the iconic pick he had versus FSU, where he went from the far hash to the other sideline. And they're like, it's not even that far. The ball was underthrown in the NFL. I'm like, the college hashes are wider than in the NFL. They are a wider field. He's never gonna have to run that far in the NFL. Like,
exactly. And the thing is, if Hamilton never ran his 40, there would still be people making the argument that he might be the best player in the class. And he still might be. I think there's probably like 3, 4, 5 guys you can make the case like this is the best player in the class. Hamilton's absolutely one of them. And so the fact that, like we were talking about earlier, the fact that he could potentially be there at 13 and is maybe the best player in the class, you're absolutely right. He's been picked on, and just trust the tape on this one.
Trust the tape. Let's go, Derrik. I love it. Okay. Beige got a question for you. What team do you follow or support?
So I was a Ravens fan once upon a time, and then I'm a very fickle fan. Let me say this: I cannot be asked to be that invested. So the 2014 going into 2015 season. So I can't remember if it was the AFC Championship game or a divisional game, but it was against the Patriots. Flacco threw a pick like right on the front left pylon, and it felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders. I was like, yeah, I don't have to do this anymore. I'm good.
Dude, you're complaining about the Ravens and their lack of success.
This was like 2 years after they won the Super Bowl.
Oh my gosh. Derrick's got a high bar. Oh man.
Just Flacco ruined me, man.
Flacco ruined you. Try being a Texans fan. Holy.
I don't think I have the fortitude.
No, that's fair though. Honestly, I feel like that's like the healthiest way to go about sports. Don't be too invested. It's tough. I always joke about that. Being a Texans fan is like, it's like an illness, man. It's like a disease. Like I can't help myself, but I'm here doing it every week. What are we? Okay, question for Derek. Perfect. Ryan says, how do you see positional value changing with the expanse of the passing game and implementation of more cover two in the NFL? I love this one, Ryan.
So I think safeties are definitely. I don't know if it's that safeties are necessarily more valuable. I do think we're seeing that the top of the market teams are a little bit more willing to pay, top of the market for these guys as
Yeah.
compared to 5, 6 years ago, which I think is notable. I think it's just that you're asking them to do different things. I think you need guys who can, play a split field half and then not only in coverage, but like be able to trigger and come down in the run game. And that's actually why,
Mhm.
a guy like John Johnson for the Rams a couple of years ago, that's what he was so good at, is that he was a really good cover defender all around. But when you put him onto the strong side and he had to trigger down and be that extra late fitter in the run game, he
Mhm.
was able to do that. And so backpacking off of that, really, I think also, the guys that are playing on not the edge of your defense, so not these like outside linebackers into 7 or whatever, but the guys who are playing like 4, 5 tech for you, that sort of deal.
Okay.
I think those guys are becoming a lot more important because those are the guys that are buying you time so that you're one. Honestly, in a lot of these defenses are only playing one linebacker.
Mhm.
Those are those guys up front are the ones that are buying the time for this linebacker to get by in a bunch of space. They're the ones buying a little bit of time for the safety to nail down. So I think those guys are becoming a lot more important. And I think we're starting to see some teams are willing to be interested in those type of players. I mean, I think it's part of why Trayvon Walker is getting as much hype as he is, because truthfully, that kind of role is probably what he would do best.
All right, we're back. I'm sorry about that. I greatly apologize. My computer has just been, I don't know, it's not been liking me recently. It'll do this weird thing where it'll freeze, and I can hear the other person talking, but I know I'm frozen, and I just have to reboot it because it crashed. But it comes back really quickly, so that's nice. But I'm
Your,
back.
your computer's ready for the end of draft season too.
I'm worn out, man. Oh man, dude, it's gonna be nice to have a little bit of a break, and then get into the kind of, I guess, the dry parts of the off season, but to recharge and be ready for the beginning of the season. But I loved your answer there. I think you're absolutely right. And in terms of people who, like you mentioned, the five technique, and our defense specifically, kind of relating that back to the Texans, that's John Grenard's role. And he's been pretty good in that. I think I'm excited to see him take another step forward going into his third year. Very, very important player for the Texans defense. Okay. Is Jordan doing the Frozen challenge? Derek, you got any fun facts on prospects? That's a very tough question, but
Do I have any fun facts on prospects? Not off the top of my head, unfortunately. I wish I did. I wish I did.
fair enough. Fair enough. I honestly don't know either. I don't have any for you. I apologize, Ryan. But we're going to get into the last segment of the show before we let Derek go. Let me pull back up my outline because freaking computer crashed. But okay, this is a section we're going to be doing with all of our guests at the end of the show. Rapid fire questions. Let's go. Okay, favorite defensive player, Derek. Who you got?
Man, favorite just in terms of like I think Logan Hall from Houston. He's kind of a weird, kind of can play 3 tech, kind of can play like 4i, kind of can play like a big end at like 6, depending on what you're doing, like a Michael Bennett. But I just think the way that he gets after it, he's the meanest defender in the class, man. Like
Oof.
he is just beats the hell out of people. I just think he has insanely heavy hands, super active. And what really impresses me the most about him is he just has this really, really unbelievable balance for a guy who is, I think he weighed in or measured in at about 6'6". Typically, it's hard to remain balanced when you're that size. You have to be rare, kind of like Calais Campbell, Eric Armstead. Those guys are just built different, and they have this odd way of coming to their center of gravity, no matter how they're getting hit, no matter what they're doing. And I think Hall has enough of that he can be that, that kind of player. Maybe he's not going to be, quite the all pro that like Calais Campbell is, but I think he can be a guy who is, consistently fighting for, Pro Bowl bids every now and then, just as a kind of like we were saying in that 3-tech-ish, 4-eye kind of role.
Yeah, 100%. I really loved him. I thought he was one of the most improved players from 2020 to 2021. I hated his 2020 tape. I was like, this guy's not playable. He's a tweener. I don't like him.
He was way lighter, yeah.
Yeah, but he bulked up and he was functional with that strength too. Like you said, like he's a wall. That dude is hard to move. He'll eat doubles. Like you kind of have to double team him because of his pure strength, his arm length. I've heard some people say he kind of has pad level issues. I didn't really see that. I actually really liked his pad level.
That, you know what? I'll speak to that very quickly. Yeah. I think in the run game, he doesn't have pad level issues. Yeah. I think he does an insane job of coming off the ball and staying low. Whether he's shooting out or like whether he's anticipating to double team or get a double team, I think his pad level in the run game is so low. I think it's just because like he does a good job of staying low out of his stance. Where I think some of the pad level stuff comes up is as a pass rusher, where he's having to like buy back that space. You know what I mean? And usually, if you're having to buy back that space and rush the passer, you're going to be standing up higher because you're running. So I think that's more where it shows up. But even then, I still think the balance outweighs the leverage issues.
I think so too. So you got him as a first round guy?
I think so. Yeah, I think he's like 24th ish on our Bleacher Report board, something like that, something in that range.
Okay, love it. I know we would love to have a Houston guy stay in state. Okay, moving on. You gave us your favorite defensive player. Give us your favorite offensive player in the draft.
Favorite offensive player in the draft. You know what? I really, really enjoy Jameson Williams from Alabama. I think, I said this on Mina's podcast, but I don't watch on Saturdays as much as I used to college football. So, I've seen, bits and pieces in a couple of games of Jameson Williams. I was like, oh yeah, he's a birder. He's fast. It's like Ruggs again. You watch him run routes and you're like, oh no, this is a lot better than Ruggs was coming out. He's to me, just one of the cleanest route runners. I think what's so impressive is he understands what kind of coverages he's getting and how to tempo his routes in a way that will actually manipulate those coverages and manipulate that kind of space. And so you probably want him to catch better in contested areas. Sometimes he has some weird drops, but like just in terms of the dynamic speed, the route running, he's going to be able to get open however, whenever, and he's really good with the ball in his hands. So I like him a lot. Yeah,
he's generally one of the most, like, if you were to put together an all like fun team, like just fun to watch, like
he's first overall.
Yes. He's like the card you're gonna go after in Madden all the time. Yes. Like you need to go get his card because he's gonna be an absolute game breaker. But no, I'm glad you mentioned the route running thing because it's so easy to label these speedsters as just speedsters. But he's not like you said, Henry Ruggs. He's not like a Nelson Aguilar, like that type of just pure speed. Like he has nuance to him. He's actually like pretty decent off the release. Like he shows some head fakes, some jab steps. He knows how to set up defenders and attack their leverage. And I keep going back to that one play where it was versus Georgia. He ran the stutter and go. It was like a stutter that was like 20 yards downfield. And he hit the stutter and it kind of it threw off the cornerback and also kind of messed with the safety as well because the timing that Lewis Sign had to come over from the center field. Like, man, he shows detail for sure. I'm with you on that. For sure. Okay, favorite defensive player, Logan Hall. Favorite offensive player, Jameson Williams. Who is the most overhyped player in this class, Derek?
There's quite a few of them, it seems, just because, the top of the class isn't what people want it to be. So I think they're trying to find some guys. I think probably the one that I would go with is Devin Lloyd, linebacker from Utah. I think for me, partially it's a preference thing. For linebackers in particular, I really, really like guys that can go up and take on blocks in the box between the tackles. That is just not Devin Lloyd's game. He's a guy who needs to be able to play in space. He needs to be able to take good angles over the top. He needs to be able to like shoot gaps rather than like actually beat blocks. And so I just think his projection is a little trickier. And also the other thing with him is, he has some snaps on the edge, and I think people have said, he's really versatile and you can put him on the edge.
No.
I personally don't think a lot of what he did is like functional. I think he would just be better to stay off the ball. And I think you're just hoping that he can be Shaq Thompson, which is probably like a generous version of what it could be, but that's kind of what you're hoping for. And I just think I'm not as confident he'll get there is the way I would phrase it.
Yeah, I remember he was one of the first guys that we actually talked about together on Twitter. And I see the hesitations with you because, especially as a Texans fan, watching Devin Lloyd and that mold of off-ball linebackers that need to go to round blocks and stuff like that, it reminds me a lot of Zach Cunningham. And I love Zach Cunningham. I bought into him fully because he's this tackle machine and he could just chase the ball down and chase down these running backs from the backside. And you're like, where'd this guy come from? Like, he just came out of nowhere, right? But at the end of the day, like, a big reason why he struggled with us is like he could not get off blocks to save his life. Once DJ Reader was gone, like our run defense crippled because Cunningham couldn't get off blocks. And if you're going to pay this guy as much as we were paying him, like, come on, like you got to be able to defeat blocks a different way because you can't keep going around them and be putting yourself out of position. So I definitely hear you on that. I think where he's different than Cunningham, I guess, is like the coverage skills. Like I really buy into Devin Lloyd's coverage ability. And so I think at the very least, you're getting like a really, really damn good zone coverage linebacker. And that's why I kind of think he's a good fit for the Texans with Lovie Smith and all that he asks out of his linebackers. Would I take him at 13? Definitely not. But if you trade down and he's there in the late 20s, do you think that's a better range for him?
Yeah. Like 13 is way too generous for me. The late 20s is like, you know what? Maybe I wouldn't do it, but like I get it in that range. You know what I mean? I think on our Bleacher Report board, he's closer to like mid 30s, high 30s.
Okay.
But at that point, that's like a 10 pick difference. That's totally fine.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I do want to ask you about this one. Ryan's got a good guy, Brandon Smith, because this was one of the more polarizing players. So I want to get your thoughts on him.
He is one of the most confounding prospects, probably in the entire class, truthfully. I'll start with the great. I think his cover skills are actually really good.
Yes.
One, he has the length, which is really impressive, but he moves around really well. I think he does good understanding what windows are behind him and how to get into those and mess with the quarterback. I think he's going to be one of the better cover guys. His run defense stuff is just all over the place. Like he'll have some reps where he comes down, crushes a puller, and makes a crazy tackle, and you're like, whoa. And then he'll have 3 plays where he just like is slow to trigger and then doesn't put his hands up against contact. And it's like, well, where'd the other guy go? Bring him back. Come on. And so I think if he can be the good version of himself as a run defender more, if he can show more consistency, he would be a good player. But I think because the inconsistency, he's more of like a, back end of day 2, early day 3 type, I think.
Yeah, that's where I see him too. 3rd, 4th round type of range. I think one thing to speak to the inconsistency, I feel like, and this is the point that you brought up earlier with Karlaftis, is I watching his 2020 tape, like he improved so much. Like I really did not like his 2020 tape, but going to his 2021 tape, he made huge strides as a run defender in terms of diagnosing his keys, and actually filling his gaps properly. So I think the arrow's pointed up for him big time. I believe he's still only just 20 years old. So
he's younger.
Yeah, exactly. So he's one of those developmental guys where I'm not going to expect him to start year 1 whatsoever, but year 2, year 3, like I think you're getting a solid above average starter. And he's got all the athletic gifts that you could dream of for sure.
I think the last thing I'll say on it, I would not be surprised if a team thinks that he can be what Willie Gay was for the Chiefs, where he kind of didn't play a whole lot early, as a rookie, and they didn't really want him to bring him on. And then by his 2nd year, he's not fantastic, Willie Gay, but like he very clearly showed this year he's a starting NFL linebacker. Yeah. I think with Smith, you're kind of hoping that that's what happens.
Absolutely. And with how much you need these faster, lighter coverage linebackers nowadays that can't get picked on in coverage as easily, these guys like Smith, they're going to have a premium for sure. But this is perfect. Alpha leads us into our next question. Who's the most underrated player / like hidden gem at any position for you?
All right. My favorite, and I watched this guy pretty late. I only saw him maybe about a month ago, but Oklahoma State linebacker Malcolm Rodriguez. This dude is crazy. He to me, he has a lot of overlap actually with Nakobe Dean. He's obviously like not as good, but he's this like shorter, sawed off guy who has good speed. And what really impresses me about him is he's quick to trigger on stuff. He does really well to diagnose and just go, but he plays really tight to his defensive lineman in traffic, and it kind of allows him to like squeeze into these really weird areas. And I think if you really watch a lot of the best linebackers in the NFL, they kind of have that trait to them where they just have this weird way of finding space that's not there in when in all that trash. So I think he kind of has that. Problem is just he has first percentile arm length, and that's going to be a problem in the NFL. Guys are just going to be bigger and stronger, and they're gonna get him that way. But if he can overcome it even a little bit, I would not be surprised if he has this weird like Chris Borland-esque early career or something like that.
Wow. Okay, Malcolm Rodriguez, OK State. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I'm gonna put him on my list to watch because I have not checked him out yet. But that's a good one to note. You can always find those linebackers. That's the great thing about that position is you can always find those linebackers late on day 3 that end up, having maybe it's a niche role or whatnot. But yeah, that's great to hear because I'm a big Nakobe Dean guy. I might be like the biggest. Like he's, I think, 6th overall on my board, which is really, really high. So I love my little linebackers who play bigger for sure. Okay. Now, last question. This is an interesting one. If you could guarantee one player to start your franchise with, who would it be? So imagine blank slate, no one's on your roster. You're rebuilding the Ravens from ground zero. Who is the one player in this draft class that you need to have?
I guess it kind of would just for me depend about like what position value you want to go for. But to me, I just think that Thibodeaux is the best player in the class, and edge is obviously a valuable enough position where you don't have to quibble with that very much. So I think for me it would just be Thibodeaux, and in my opinion, that's locking in a guy who's going to be basically flip flopping over and under 10 sacks a year, somewhere in that 8 to 12 range consistently. So I think if you take a guy like that, that's probably that's probably how I would want to do it, just because. Even though I like Ritter, I don't know if he's all the way a guy I would want to swing on. And then I don't like any of the other quarterbacks. So it's just Thibodeaux for me.
That's fair. Thank you, Alpha, for $5. I appreciate it. What I was going to say is every time a Texans fan asks me on Twitter and says, no, I don't want Kayvon Thibodeaux. He's overhyped, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to replay this podcast. Okay. I'm just going to replay it to them because this is perfect, Derrik. I love all the points you made on Thibodeaux. And my final thing on him is, where do you see his ceiling? What is like if everything goes right for him, what does that type of player look like?
So to me, he's actually really, really similar to Jaguars pass rusher Josh Allen. I just think he's like better. I think he's a little bit bigger, he's a little bit faster, he's a little bit stronger. So I think, we've seen Josh Allen get up into that 10 sack range. And I think if Thibodeaux can be a little bit better than that and then add some consistency, and to be fair, part of Josh Allen's inconsistency is he had some bad players playing on the other side of him at certain points, especially this year, like Clavin Chazon is not an NFL player. And so I think if he could be a little bit more consistent, slightly better version of Josh Allen, that's kind of what I see.
Okay. I love it. So that's perennial Pro Bowl. Do you think perennial All Pro?
That's like, to me, pretty consistent Pro Bowler with like, maybe he squeezes in one or two All Pros.
Okay. I love it. I think that's a player that you absolutely can build your defense around. And I think Texans fans should love that pick at 3. Stop comparing him to Clowney. Stop comparing him to Mario Williams. He is his own man. You cannot hold previous players' history against a different player. You just can't. It's not fair whatsoever. But Money Matt, thank you so much for the $50. Whew. Appreciate you, my guy. Hope you had a good time in Florida. Jerry Nolf with $20. Great talk, guys. Good job making sense and not getting me mad. There you go. We turned one potential, I think, Kayvon Thibodeaux doubter. We turned him around. Let's go, Derrik. But I appreciate the $20 from Jerry. Okay, that's going to do it for us. Never mind. We got another one. Alpha, $5. Thank you very much, my guy. He says, damn, Matt, can't hang with you, brother. Money, no, you cannot hang with Money Matt. You don't want to try. You do not want to try. But that's going to do it for us today. Thank you for everyone who tuned in. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff on the YouTube. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, I appreciate you. More shows will be coming on the Believe in Texans Network. Follow me on Twitter at Texans_thoughts. Follow Derrik at QB Class. I mean, you don't even need any more Twitter followers. I don't know why I'm plugging you. You're fine. You're chilling. You're on Mina Kimes' show all the time. Like, come on, you're fine.
It doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt. Absolutely. Definitely check him out, guys, for more NFL draft content. He's definitely one of my go-to guys to, see are my takes logical and to get some other ideas on these other players. But thank you very much, Derrik. I appreciate you for taking the time out of your day to join me, man.
Yeah, thank you, man, for having me on. It was a blast. Anytime.
Awesome. We'll have to do it again. But yes, take care, everyone. Hope you guys enjoyed. And remember, the film don't lie.